We're glad you're with us. This is the Retirement Education Hour. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Mozak, and I'm back in the studios once again with financial instructors Kirk Cassidy and Michael Mazarint. And we're going to be talking to you about Kirk and Michael's foundation. This is the Retirement Education Foundation, and there are plenty of financial instructors just like Kirk and Michael who want to help you get educated about all things retirement planning, and they make that very easy for you. Of course, this show, one of the things that the Retirement Education Foundation sponsors, but they also hold master's-like courses on retirement planning. They're held at major colleges and universities near you. Be listening for how you can attend throughout the show today. I want to make sure you have our website. Go to retirementplanningedu.org, and we do have a great program lined up for you today. If you're like most people, you probably like to feel like you're in control, right? And that goes for a lot of things. When you're on the road, when you're buying a house, when you're disciplining your children and raising kids. But it also goes for our finances. And Kirk and Michael, I want to talk about this specifically within the context of retirement planning. And you say that it is so vital that we understand where true control comes from in retirement. Tell us more.
Megan, we are, and Michael, I'm so excited about this show. To give Paul, Dr. Metler, who does the radio show with us all the time, he put together the content, and of course, being a psychologist, right? That's his background. He really has been digging into this concept of control around retirement and what people perceive to be control and what really drives control in retirement. And there is a disconnect. The things that people believe that are driving control, giving them control and producing outcomes aren't really what's going to produce control outcomes. And really at the end of the day, what control and positive outcomes in retirement produces is freedom. We're all looking for freedom, spending 43 years working, 90,000 plus hours working, saving. Most of our listeners that listen to their shows and consume our content have somewhere between $500 and $10 million of investable assets. You guys have done a really nice job of being disciplined saving, but there's a massive disconnect when it comes to retirement. And I know you feel this. You can pretend that you don't, but every time there's an election change or a market event, which happens constantly, there's massive fear and anxiety, and I don't believe anybody feels freedom when the tariffs began, some people when Trump was elected, some people when Biden was elected, when wars are starting, when we have COVID, when we have 2022, when we have 2018, when we have 2008, all these, I can't believe those people in their 60s and 70s feel like they have control or freedom every time we have a major market event.
Well, people really conflate this idea of freedom with they feel like they're free if they're making the choices, but they're really not. They're really tricking themselves. And this topic honestly does require people to be a little introspective here. And this is, as you mentioned, so Dr. Paul Metler is a psychologist, and he mentioned something a few months ago really that stuck with me, that control is an illusion. We all feel like we're in control of things, but there are so many elements that are outside of our control. Our health, the health of the economy, the stock market. There are so many things that can impact people on a day-to-day basis that we have zero control over. But because we don't have control over those things, we kind of push those to the side. It's scary to think about your health could be changed on the drop of a hat, or the stock market could crash, or you might lose your job. Those things are scary. People don't think about those things. What they hyper-focus on is this illusion of control of, well, I can control which stock I purchase. I can control when I sell or when I buy back into the stock market based on what hunch I think I have. And that makes them feel better.
But it doesn't produce freedom or the control and the freedom to spend and enjoy the retirement that they want. And I think you're going to be shocked. We're going to give you some data points, and we're going to help you to focus on understanding what outcomes you want. And if you can determine that, now you can generate some control. And this will make sense if you stick with us. And we cannot encourage you enough to attend one of our 8-hour, what is almost master level courses taught at major universities and colleges in your area. These are taught over 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
So, Kirk, like you mentioned, we're talking today about trying to compare and quantify and show people how input versus outputs matter. People are so focused on the inputs or the strategies that they're trying to use to build their wealth. And I think, again, this comes back to the accumulation phase versus spend down phase. And when you're saving for wealth, when you're saving for retirement, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you do have control over a couple important factors. You do have control over how much you choose to save every single month out of your paycheck. You do control where those dollars get saved into. And so you get used to having that control over the portfolio, that control over your investments, even though you should just be buying the index and calling it a day. But then things start to change once you're approaching retirement phase, and you have to make a lot of decisions that people don't quite understand the levers on quantifying. Well, what if I retire 1 year sooner, 1 year later? What happens if I spend an extra 10 grand a year? You can't quantify those things, and that the fear of the unknown starts to sink in, and people kind of bury their heads in the sand and go, I'll just focus on what I can control.
My investments.
If I buy Microsoft or Amazon today, or if I sell Tesla or Nvidia, that's not having control. You're just choosing to focus on the small pieces that you happen to have your hands on the triggers on, when there are much larger forces at play here that have a bigger impact.
So what we're going to do, Michael, is I think there's two things. One is the importance of the education. It's why the foundation, the charity, is taught over, I don't know where we're at. I bet we're getting north of 15,000 people. I know hundreds of thousands of people consume our radio content, our webinars, our white papers from
the podcast as well.
The podcasts. So we know we're impacting people, but so the piece is the educational piece to understand how to determine the outcomes that you want. And outcomes in retirement is so different than outcomes of, I want to save X amount of dollars over my lifetime so I can retire. But outcomes is many different variables. And it's not just how much I want to spend, how much I want to leave, but there's tax outcomes, there's risk mitigation. How much risk am I willing to take versus income I'm wanting to spend? So there's all these different outcomes we want you to focus on. We want to educate you around. And once you're able to get your arms around what those outcomes that you are comfortable with, then you'll learn math, iterating, planning, risk mitigation is what's going to drive the inputs. So do us a favor, do yourself a favor, attend one of our 8-hour classes so you can begin this educational process. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
You know, in retirement, you do want to feel like you have some control. And Kirk and Michael today, they're sharing about how you can have true control. Kirk, Michael, you say it all comes down to these inputs and outputs. What do you mean by that?
So, Megan, what is attracted to those people who tend to listen to our podcasts, our radio shows, those people who most often attending those 8-hour, what are like master level courses, both virtually and live in the universities, are often people who have been, to some degree, taking care of their own finances in terms of investments over their careers. These tend to be professionals, a lot of engineers, tons of engineers, right? People who tend to more want to focus on doing it themselves in terms of investment management and portfolio management. And just full transparency, anyone that's been listening to the charity for years now knows that we actually believe in and support the concept of when you are younger, in your 30s, 40s, even into your early 50s, maybe, that doing it yourself is the prudent thing to do. It is, as long as you are very confident you're saving enough, you're confident with lifestyle inflation, with your career inflation, as long as you're making the right decisions from a savings perspective, and then from an investment perspective, you're keeping it simple. It is not complicated. I know you guys enjoy digging and doing research and watching all the newsletters and the CNBCs and the Bloomberg. I know you guys like it. But not even Kramer beats the S&P 500. He has underperformed the S&P 500 by greater than 100% over the last 20 years. All you got to do is buy the index. If you look at the math and take all of your savings and just bought the S&P 500 over the last 30 years, you'd have significantly more wealth than you have today. And that's why we don't think you need anybody. But I will say, when it comes to retirement, it's a different ballgame. And it is very difficult for these people who are highly technical, that are well-researched, that understand conceptually finance and taxes. They conceptually understand these things. To then say, who can I trust to take care of me as I age and build me a retirement plan? And so what a lot of these people end up doing is they end up doing it themselves because they want to maintain control. And you don't have control. I know you don't have control. Every time we have a major market event, you don't feel in control. And as you get older, those anxieties will increase. Old people aren't cheap. They get scared. That's why they stop spending and reduce their spending. They're afraid of outliving their money. They're using general rules that should not apply to them, like a silly 4% rule. That is almost half of what you should and can be spending. You could spend significantly more money. You can pay significantly less taxes. But to do that, you have to understand what drives control in retirement is definitively understanding the outcomes that you want. Now, I think everyone thinks that's simple. I know the outcomes I want. You don't. You need to understand the variables that apply to you as you age. A spouse dying early, an illness early, a long-term care event, major market events every 4 to 6 years, major market events, sequence of returns risk, Social Security. 92% of people make the wrong decision, leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Michael's looking at the clock saying, are you going to pass it to me? I am. I'm going to pass it to you. How much income? If you understand those outcomes, then we can show you how to get control.
So this is where I think, again, and I mentioned this in our first segment, where I think a lot of people struggle is because that feeling of control during the accumulation stage when you're younger, it's just savings rates and S&P 500, call it a day. And that's what they're used to. But all those things you just mentioned, that's when people begin to realize, typically in their late 50s, early 60s, they begin to realize, oh, wait, okay, I've got this healthy nest egg and it's growing. I've done a great job growing this wealth, but when can I afford to retire? How much can I afford to spend? Pull how much from which accounts at which times and in which tax brackets? And they begin to realize, well, if I do this properly versus improperly, that is substantially going to change my outcomes. And all of that fear, when people feel anxiety, it's typically fight or flight. And a lot of people just flee. They flee into whatever they feel comfortable doing, and they flee right back into the portfolio. They look at their investment strategies. If your portfolio is 40-60, 60-40, 80-20, that doesn't impact your tax planning. You're not addressing the right things. It doesn't impact what happens if one spouse passes early or if we need long-term care. But that's what they focus on. That's what they're familiar with.
Michael, I can't stress enough. I just want to shake people on the other side of the listening to this show, the podcasts and the radio shows. I just want to shake them and say, please, I beg you, just come to this class. If you come to this class and we do not significantly change your approach to your retirement and help you to have greater freedom just through this education, we will make, our charity will make a $2,000 donation to whatever charity you want. And in over a decade, it's almost a decade and a half now, we've gone called out on that one time, thousands and thousands of people, one time. Please do yourself a favor. And we're going to dig into some more of this through the show, but register. It's an 8-hour class that you can do in 2 evenings or one full Saturday, taught at all the major universities, most of the major universities and colleges in your area. We also stream the classes for people all over the country because we know people are listening to us all over the country now, so that you can stream live while we're in the classrooms and participate in the classrooms. So if you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the university so you can attend anywhere in the country. Go to retirementplanningedu.org That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
All right, Kirk, Michael, talking about control in retirement planning, and I'd love some examples, specifically of times you see people thinking they're in control of their financial future, but really they're just grasping at straws. They're not even in control at all.
Well, Megan, I think one obvious one is the target of how much they need to save. It has to be the outcome, right? What you want in retirement should drive everything you do once you're within 7 to 10 years of retirement. Once you're within 7 to 10 years of retirement, how much do I want to spend? How much risk am I willing to take? What type of assets do I have? How do I minimize? But what people grasp, because that is so complicated. It is so nuanced. And I know we have really intelligent, bright, sophisticated people watching and listening. Some are watching, but listening. The nuance is in the mixed messages you get from the financial service industry makes so many of those outcomes difficult to quantify that they end up focusing on, and what they believe and perceive control is how much do I need to save? So a goal, a target. Michael always uses the $3 million. If I just hit $3 million, I'll be okay.
I don't know why that number has become so popular. I hear that once a week from people attending the class. I just know I need $3 million. And I ask them,
why?
Great, why? And then they start to, well, because I read on a blog somewhere that's the number. Okay, stop. The person who posted that anonymously on a blog somewhere, do they have the same lifestyle as you? Are they the same age as you? Are they married or single? Are you married or single? Do you want to spend $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year or somewhere in between?
Do they have a pension or not have a pension? Sorry, I'm going to keep going. But do they have a large Social Security benefit? Does their spouse have a large Social Security benefit? Or is there non-IRA dollars or IRA dollars? Are they Roth dollars? There's so many variables.
So maybe for that person who posted that $3 million target and they're advocating that's the magic number for everybody, maybe that is the magic number for that person. But it comes down to, what do you want? Don't tell me what your target is. Tell me, what do you want? When do you want to retire? How much do you want to spend once you're retired? How much do you want to leave when you're gone? Is that a goal for you at all? For some people, a legacy is a huge goal, leaving a lot of wealth to someone when they're gone. For other people, it's not. Very different plans. And so people think they're in control. They've picked this target. I've picked the target. I'm in control of my target. But that target might be irrelevant to you. Or
it is irrelevant.
Retirement dates. I'm going to work until 65 or 67.
No, 65, because Medicare kicks on. Something magical's happening. Right? All of a sudden, like, Medicare's free.
Yeah, people pick these milestones. 59 and a half is when they can access their IRA money. 62 is when they can first claim Social Security. 65 when Medicare kicks in. 67 when it's their full retirement age. These ages, they're not totally irrelevant, but these are not the end-all, be-all solutions for choosing when to retire. But people grab onto these milestones because it gives them some peace of mind that they think they've chosen something.
That's not control. So, and what we're talking about, guys, is nuance, because you don't know what you don't know, listeners. You don't know what you don't know, and that's the purpose of the class, is to help you understand the things you don't know. So where are the traps? Like, where is the risk? What happens? And I know you guys, you read articles and you think you have knowledge, but you don't, because the information you're reading is such nonsense. I mean, candidly, Michael, that's why whatever it's been, I lose track. 10, 15 years ago when the charity was founded, and we have identified select CFPs and wealth managers, CPAs and attorneys to be instructors. I mean, these are just a handful. I mean, literally a handful. It's the reason why we haven't gone nationally yet, because our industry's full of, you know what? They are. And we are so tired of watching the BS nonsense sales pitch and people's just way underspending what they should be spending in retirement, paying way more taxes than they need to. But before you have the ability to choose a team, choose somebody to help you, or decide to do it yourself, you have to understand all the variables and all the levers and the outputs. And once you have the outputs and the outcomes you want, once you know what those are, then whoever's driving the portfolio is irrelevant, because the plan drives the portfolio. The plan drives when you're taking Social Security. The plan drives everything. But you cannot begin to find someone to build you a plan or construct your own plan without understanding all the variables. That is what the most enlightening part of this charity and the course is, Michael.
And that's really where, in terms of you mentioned the plan, that's where people do have control. They have control over how much do you want to spend per year? Do you want to spend $100,000, $150,000, or $250,000? Do you want to retire this year or next year, or in 2 years or 5 years? You have control of the outcomes. But once you've identified the outcomes you want to target, you've got to adjust and let the strategies to achieve those outcomes work for you.
It's all about risk mitigation, understanding what that even means to you. At what level, at what decade of your life, and what are the different traps? So sign up for an 8-hour class. There are 2 evenings, 4 hours each, or a full 8-hour class taught at major universities and colleges in your area. We asked for a $29 donation that goes to charity. We're supporting Folds of Honors this year. Last year, we raised a ton of money for Alzheimer's, and we're also supporting financial literacy for high school students going into lower income communities and teaching kids about financial literacy. So that's where the $29 donation goes to. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
All right, Kirk, Michael, we've been talking about control today as it relates to our retirement planning. What is the one decision that you can make as you age, as you get closer to retirement, that really is the game changer of all decisions?
Well, I think the most important decision as you approach retirement and then through retirement that will provide you the greatest amount of control, right? Happens to also be, I'm teasing you guys a little, happens to also be my favorite part of the class. It really is. As people go through the class, it's an 8-hour course. I've watched Fortune 500 CFOs and executives for the automotive industry. I've seen CPAs, attorneys, engineers. This isn't just a few. I see this with. I was giving you high level, high intelligence around finance. I watch people just come in with sometimes a big head, big ego into these classes and just get deflated as we go through the class. I don't particularly love that part of it, but that's part of the reprogramming we have to take people through. We have to hit you in the mouth because everyone has a plan until they get hit in the mouth, like Mike Tyson said. So taking somebody through this class and watching them just shrink and almost get discouraged and so irritated with some of the decisions they've made, and just feeling a sense of, especially like in the first half of the class, what is the answer? This is very different than I ever read or I ever imagined. It's the part where we get towards the end of the class where they begin to recognize, that there is outcomes, and the outcomes are significantly better than everything they've been told and read. Literally. They figured out that the advisors in the financial service industry make more money having you scared and spending less money. The less you spend, the more they make. And once they realize, wait a second, I don't just have to live on 4% and be scared and protect my principal. I could actually spend 7, 8% per year out of my investments, fully risk mitigated against every possible risk. And they're like, okay, I got hope, but I can't do this myself. No duh. We've been telling you guys for years, listen to this, you can't do this yourself. And there's not a lot of people in the country that can do this. There's a lot of people in the country that say they do this. There's a lot of people in the country that are great salespeople. And the challenge is, no matter how smart you think you are, they will con you. And this is really what holds people back, is they know this. People know this about themselves. They know they can be sold. So who can they trust? So the control thing is I need to be driving, and because I don't trust anybody. So the favorite part of the class is how do you choose your team? We spent an hour on how do you choose a team? Background checks, how do they get paid? What specific questions do you ask? What specific questions about throughout periods of time in retirement? Hypotheticals that you can give that team that you're hiring to see how they will respond. And you will be able to call their bluff. It can't be a sales sizzle. It's not just them selling you features and benefits. You're going to pin them specifically at different periods of time throughout your retirement to know if there's pivot accounts, if they're really managing sequence of returns risk, if they're really managing when the first spouse dies, the tax implications of that. If they've really done the tax iterating around when to take Social Security, because Social Security is really a tax question more than anything. Right? So that is my favorite part, and that is also the part where the single most important thing is people recognizing, first, they're going to need a team as they age and cognitively decline, period. They have to have a team. If they don't, you don't have to have a team, Michael. They can just live on 4%, have a 60-40 portfolio, and play the game of the up and down and fearful every time an election, every time tariff comes up. Scared. That's fine. Do it.
And that's really, again, back to inputs and outputs. If someone just wants simplicity, if they want to throw all their wealth, they've spent their entire lives working for, sacrificing vacations, sacrificing the home purchase, and they want to dump it all into a 60-40 portfolio, take their 4% per year, you can do that. You'll be able to work longer, spend less, pay more taxes, take more risk, you'll have more anxiety, but you can certainly, it's simpler to do that, but you'll get significantly worse outcomes than if finding a true team. And this is one of the things that I think as people are walking out of the class, they're walking out of realizing, okay, it's not a portfolio. It's not an investment. There is no, U.S. versus international stock blends, stock bond mixes. I need a CPA. I need an estate planning attorney that has managed and helped people build their trusts around retirement planning, not someone who's practicing divorce law or practicing trial law. I need people who are experts at this, because if your financial planner tells you I can't give you tax advice, you've got to run. That person, if they're not giving you tax advice, they'll give you a pre-approved list of CPAs that they may work with. So you go
That's nonsense.
You go talk to the CPA, and the CPA says, well, if you Roth convert $50,000, you'll owe an extra $5,000 in taxes this year. Thanks. I can use the TurboTax calculator too. I'm asking you, what should I do? And the CPA is not talking to the financial planner. The financial planner is not talking to the attorney. You're quarterbacking everything. Something's going to get dropped.
Yes, and we talk about that. And then we talk about the generational planning as well. There's in the class. But that team approach, Michael, that is the greatest way to gain control, is to have your team that is integrated under one roof doing everything. And that's one of the things that the class will teach you. How do you choose a team? How do you find the team? And trust us, you do not have the knowledge to be able to weed through the incredible marketing and sales of the financial annuity salespeople that are all over your radios and TV airways that you're listening to regular. Those are annuity pushers. Those are annuity salespeople. I'm telling you, the class will arm you with the ability to find the right teams. And that team is what's going to drive your control and your freedom. So if you'd like to register for one of these 8-hour classes, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
All right, control in retirement. This is one of those things that, boy, you do need the right team around you, but then you've got to empower that team. Right, Kirk and Michael?
So this, I'm going to jump in here, Kirk, because you were sort of rolling over me last time. So this is something I've been thinking about.
Sorry.
I think about this a lot. And the analogy I used to give people all the time about control and finding the right team, I would tease myself. I'm not a very mechanically inclined person. So if my car needs to be repaired, I need to go to a mechanic. And I need to find a team that I trust to do the job properly. And it's hard because I don't know anything about cars. I don't know if they're doing a good job or a bad job. But I think when it comes to retirement, it's bigger than that. This is not just getting a car fixed. This is your whole life savings you're talking about. So this is more like you're the CEO. You are the chief executive officer of your retirement. And if we compare it, I'll pick a local company to us here in Michigan, to Ford, Jim Farley. Jim Farley is the CEO of Ford. He has hired teams to help him run Ford. He has a chief financial officer. He has a chief operations officer. He has a chief compliance officer. They have a chief technology officer. He has all these teams that he has entrusted and empowered to go execute the vision that he has for Ford Motor Company. So your job as your retirement's CEO is to define what is the vision you have for your own retirement. Don't get in the weeds on what number you're going to target just define what do you want. And then you've got to go explain to the teams that you are going to end up working with to let them build that retirement plan for you. Because if you try to get in the weeds on every single decision, you're going to get lost in it. Jim Farley does not get in the weeds on every single decision being made at Ford. It's not possible. He's got to pick his teams and trust his teams.
This is particularly important, Michael. And again, we said this last segment. We'll say it again this segment. This is probably probably the favorite part of the class is how do you choose a team, right? And so this is particularly important when it comes to your finance, generally, just money. We're all broken with money. We have way too much emotions associated with money, and emotions never allow us to make good, logical decisions when it comes to our investments and our finances and what we do and not do during different periods of time. All of these different biases we've had over our lifetime creeps into our head. That's natural. That happens to everyone. Don't feel like I'm picking on you. It happens to everyone. It's why so many in our private practice, so many different advisors in our industry, when they retire, they come to our firm. We're a family office, and a multifamily office, and we take care of them. They don't even take care of their own retirements, and it's because of the emotions. But the other piece is, I think the reason why so many people aren't choosing in hiring teams is it's trust. It's trust in the people that they hire, but I would argue it's more even trust in themselves. They know that they don't know everything they need to know, right? And so therefore, when you have blind spots, to hire the right CFO, COO becomes very difficult because you've never done it before. You don't know what to look for. You don't know where the traps, the mistakes, the personalities, all the different things that are critical to hiring those different roles as you being the CEO. And that's the value of the class. The class is going to literally give you the tools, specific tools, to quantify if these teams that you're trying to hire can execute the vision of you, the CEO, your retirement plans. Can they execute it? Do they have the skill set? Do they have the emotional capacity? Do they have the business capacity? Do they have the team? Do they have, like we believe if you are between $1 and $10 million of investable assets, the services shouldn't be segregated. It should be all integrated under one roof where your CPA, the estate planning attorney, and your wealth managers are working together in collaboration, not preferred vendors or a strategic partner. They are working together, integrated together. Their practices are integrated. So we give you the knowledge of what to look for and then specifically what questions that you should be asking to know if they have the skill set as a CFO to execute this or a skill set as a COO, right? You're the CEO. You're hiring this team. And to be able to do that, that's why the class is 8 hours, is to teach you specifically what to be looking for and how to identify if these are the right people for the job.
And a lot of people, because they don't have that knowledge, they don't have that experience, they don't know who they should and shouldn't trust. They just say, okay,
Not a lot of people, everyone. This is the first time they will ever build a retirement plan.
You're right.
Every one of these people listening, this is the first time they've ever done it. And they're going to hire this team without this education?
And so that fear caused them to shut down. They don't trust anybody. And they say, I'll just do it myself. So, okay, so you're going to manage the portfolio. You're going to manage sequence of returns risk. You're going to plan out your taxes for the next 10, 20, 30 years, file your own tax returns, do your own quarterly estimates, update your trust on your own. And then what happens when you get sick and pass away and your spouse, who doesn't know what's going on?
Michael, I'm going to jump in. That's exactly what I was going to say because I want to hit that point, and I'm interrupting you, but we're going to run out of time. And I don't want to miss this opportunity. It's often this generation, it's the men taking care of things. Do you want a horrific statistic? 80% of women will die single, and 80% of those women will be impoverished because you don't know what the hell you're doing. Period. I'm telling you, you do not know the traps for the surviving spouse and what is going to happen. You can't read your way through this. You got to attend one of these 8-hour classes. It's a $29 donation to charity. It's nothing. I mean, from a financial commitment, it's nothing. 8 hours taught in 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday taught at most major universities and colleges in your areas. And for people all around the country listening to our podcast now, you can stream those classes live as we're right in the middle of the University of Michigan teaching the class. So if you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
When it comes to having that true control over your retirement future, Kirk and Michael, you say there's one thing you absolutely have to focus on.
It's always the plan. And I think the challenge is most people don't really understand what a plan is. They get things from, Creative. They get things from Golden Reserve. They get things from these different firms, and they perceive them to be retirement plans. And they're better than not having anything. What we're talking about is something significantly different. And so if you're uncertain whether or not you want to attend the full 8-hour class, at minimum, go to the charity's website. I mean, and I'm going to spend a minute talk about the charity in a minute, but go to the charity's website, and there's a webinar specifically that says, I think, sample plan, sample retirement plan. I think it's like 30 or 40 minutes. And it'll walk you through in 30 minutes, as well as we can do in 30 minutes, what a comprehensive retirement plan that took over 50 hours to build. And it was literally, a team of CFPs, CPAs, attorneys, iterating, doing hundreds of iterations to find the most efficient path from a tax perspective, the maximum income that can be generated with the greatest risk mitigation for every possible scenario. Major market events every 3 to 6 years, an early passing of a spouse, a recession, long-term care events, living extended lifetime. You name the events. That's why there's hundreds of iterations. It takes 50 plus hours. But the outcome, Michael, is that, and I want to spend a minute talking about the charity, but the outcome, Michael, from an effective plan is freedom. It's freedom to spend more. So you'll see in those plans, if you're in your 60s, you can spend 6, 7, 8, 9% per year out of your investments. So if you had $2 million in your mid-60s, you could have $160,000 a year, not 80, not the 4% rule. $160,000 with all these risk mitigations and minimizing hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes if somebody does it properly. And the problem is you don't know, and that's the purpose of the class. You don't know what proper is, and if you just hear salespeople, annuity pushers on the radio and TV selling you things. And then they put the spreadsheet out, and they say they have CPAs and attorneys, and they pretend to be really iterating and building plans, but really they're selling you just annuities.
Well, you know what cracks me up is that we pretty frequently have people come up to us after the class is over, and they have in their hands their quote-unquote plan from either their team or whoever, and it's a dial. It's the dial plan. It's e-money. It's Money Guide Pro. It's Right Capital. It's Riskalyze.
It's Roadmap to Retirement.
They're all these different quote-unquote financial planning software systems that it's just the Monte Carlo back test, the 4% rule. It's all they're doing. And they've got this 40, 50, 60-page packet in their hand. It's got bar charts and line charts and pie charts and the dial of success. And they walk up to us after class going, well, this is useless. And they realize now why those nonsense dials didn't make them feel good. Their team will give them an e-money plan that has their dial in the 99% likely to succeed green zone, and they still don't feel good about that. And now they recognize why. Is because even though their dial is at 99% likely to succeed, they still don't have the answers. Okay, great. It has me pulling money out from accounts, but which accounts? At what tax bracket? What happens when the market crashes? They don't have those answers, and it's not in that packet anywhere because that packet's not designed to iterate and find those answers. The packet is designed to produce the most watered down, basic, generic financial planning possible and give them 4% rule outcomes and call it a day. Because that lets that team, instead of spending 50 hours on one plan, they can spend 50 hours building 50 plans.
It's just a challenging business model to really build those plans. So you have to, it's like finding the needle in the haystack, finding the right teams, because there's millions of insurance salesmen, hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of advisors pretending to do retirement planning. And you have to have enough knowledge to be able to weed through the nonsense and the truth. And I mean, there's some basic deductive reasoning. How many advisors does a company have and how much total assets under management? Well, through that basic math right there would tell you, are they an insurance predominantly salespeople, or do they really manage money and do real family office type wealth management? That's the purpose of the class, to help you see the forest through the trees, is that the expression? Because our industry is about creating a perception that isn't always the reality. Everyone's a best-selling author, and someone had their book written for them, ghostwritten. It's such nonsense. There's so much sizzle. Attend an 8-hour, it's a charity. We're asking a $29 donation to charity, 8 hours taught in 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. We're teaching at the University of Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Michigan State University, Novi and Troy campuses, Oakland University. I think we're now at Michigan Dearborn, University of Missouri, Columbia College. There will be more universities to come, but we are doing it slowly. We just don't let any instructor teach a class. This is a charity to protect the retirees in their communities. So if you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.